You are watching Confusion.
Hi, welcome to another Confusion video. Dagogo here. Recently there's been a storm smashing through the tech community in the past couple of days. It's all about a company called OnePlus and their very first phone titled One. In essence, it's a flagship phone that sells for less than half the price of all the other flagships out there. But the question is, how? In this video, we'll get some inside information from the company's CEO and look at how such a phone could be made for such a price. Let's start off simple. What is it? The OnePlus One is yet another flagship device. It features a Snapdragon 801 processor with an Adreno 330 GPU, 3GB of RAM, and a 5.5-inch JDI display. And for those of you who are wondering, the acronym JDI stands for Japan Display Inc. It's a joint venture between Sony, Toshiba, and Hitachi. On the rear there's a 13-megapixel Sony lens that can shoot slow motion at 120 frames per second in 720p, and powering it all is a 3100 mAh battery. Software-wise, it runs a custom version of CyanogenMod, built especially for this device. They're calling this version 11S. The base of the software is Android 4.4 KitKat. CyanogenMod is interesting because it brings an extra level of user control. So for example, if you want, you can toggle between capacitive and on-screen buttons. Alright, so that's enough about the specs, let's really get into it. What is the big deal? Well, as you probably already know, it's incredibly cheap. At $299 for the 16GB model and $349 for the 64GB model, that's pretty insane. So the crux of the matter, how is it so cheap? To really understand and answer this question, we have to look at a couple of things. Firstly, the cost of producing a flagship phone. The best place to look would be the Samsung Galaxy S5. It shares some of the same specs as the OnePlus One, and it makes a good starting point to understand all of this. As it turns out, it costs anywhere from $206 to $256 to build an S5, depending on who you ask. After the raw cost of the parts, there's the engineering consultation, advertising, and other such costs. There's not much information about the profit margin of the Galaxy S5 this year, but we can use the Galaxy S4 to continue the analysis. Last year, the Samsung Galaxy S4 created $100 of profit per phone. The Galaxy S4 cost $236 to build and was sold for $700. So adding Samsung's $100 profit with the cost of manufacturing the phone, this means that there's $364 left over for advertising, engineering consultation, and everything else that's needed. Given that the Galaxy S5 was sold for less than the Galaxy S4, but cost potentially $20 more to make, this amount will be even less this time round. So at this point, it looks like selling the OnePlus One for $299 is going to be a sure loss. Well, maybe not. Even though OnePlus is a brand new company founded in December 2013, it's worth noting that OnePlus was created by the Vice President of Oppo, Pete Lau. So really, it's not unfeasible that some of the initial overhead setup costs and manufacturing costs could be greatly reduced by using some of the infrastructure already in place by Oppo. Oppo and Pete are still on good terms after 8 years of partnership, so this makes sense. In addition to this, Pete is a smart man. In an interview with China Daily, we hear about the origins of the OnePlus, what the phone actually means according to Pete, and the inside information about how he's thinking about the smartphone market. The following are direct quotes from the interview translated into English. This is Pete speaking. OnePlus is really a product of all the things I have learned throughout my professional career. I have been making consumer products for over 10 years, and in that time, I've become increasingly picky about consumer electronics. Recently, I've just found myself unsatisfied with the phones on the market. They're either ugly, poorly made, or loaded with bloated software. I spent a lot of time communicating with users and found that users really do care about the design of their device. Just a couple of weeks ago, we held a fan gathering and asked users about what bothered them the most about their smartphones. Ugly designs were always mentioned, and always one of the top 3 disappointments. Many people are unsatisfied with the look of their phones. I saw an opportunity to create a better and more beautiful smartphone. That's why I decided to start OnePlus. Pete goes on to say, One stands for each individual user, and Plus represents the spirit of sharing. We believe that when customers have our products, they'll want to share it with friends. He goes on to say that pixels and megapixels are the way that many brands make their decisions. And he says that's not the way. He says his opinion is not popular, but he wants to give value back to the user. Pete says he's making decisions based on what users actually care about when using their product. For example, the entire experience. The experience when they open the package, the smoothness of the software, and the feel of the device in your hand. These are the things that people really care about. We make good, solid devices and believe that the product will speak for itself. That's what all my years in business have taught me. Pete goes on to say that selling online eliminates the traditional costs that come with selling through retail. Pete sums up the ideologies of the phone at the end of the interview quite nicely. The specs are not the core of our product, so it might be difficult for users to take a chance on us. But once they use our products, we're confident that they'll end up sharing it with their friends. We're turning the marketplace upside down by not pursuing more traditional marketing techniques, but relying on online communication and direct interaction with our users. If users like our products, they'll spread that online. And it kind of makes sense. If there was a magical phone that was perfect for the most part and cost less than half the price of other phones with the same specs, wouldn't you tell a friend? So there we go. With the advertising costs reduced, manufacturing costs subsidized, in theory, that's possibly how they made it so cheap. But it's clear that the profit margin will be very low if there is even one. The OnePlus One is just about establishing the company more than anything else. So in conclusion, I really want this phone to do well, but it's really hard to tell. I really think that the phone will do well within the tech community, but for the wider picture, mums, dads, non-tech savvy people, it's really hard to say. Anyway, this has been Cold Fusion. Thank you for watching and hopefully you learned something from that. Let me know in the comment section your thoughts on the OnePlus One. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button because you're not going to be disappointed with the quality of videos that come out of this channel. So as usual, don't forget to rate, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon for the next video. Cheers.
Cold Fusion. It's new thinking.